Happy Monday, everybody. So this is actually going to be the video lesson for both Monday and Tuesday this week, and potentially really even Wednesday, because those of you online learners, we're actually going to be doing a web quest during the class period on Tuesday and Wednesday, and there will be the online version of that you will need to complete that I will be posting tomorrow for you guys. So with that being said, let's kind of talk about ancient Egypt. We talk about it very briefly, which I know is usually kind of a surprise with most students because they're like, man, this is world history. I thought we were going to be talking about, like ancient Egypt a lot more and ancient Mesopotamia a lot more. Well, remember, I have to get from like 10,000 BC, like the dawn of civilization, to the beginning of the Cold War, which was 1947, in like 9 months. So we can't dwell as long as you would typically think on the ancient cultures. And I'll be really honest, the ancient stuff is not my area of expertise. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like I don't know the basics, but I don't know as much as I do about upcoming units. So if you have questions, though, and you're kind of like, well, wait, like she didn't get into this as much, or she didn't talk about that as much, email me your questions or comment with your questions, and I would love to like Google right along with you or find something out. So let's look at Egypt. Again, you online learners, in class, we're discussing like, okay, tell me what you know about ancient Egypt. And the number one thing that keeps popping up are the pyramids, Cleopatra, mummification, some of their gods, all kinds of fun stuff. Because the ancient Egyptians were fun and amazing people. I mean, their civilization lasted for 3,000 years. So, of course, they left a lot of themselves, thank goodness, for us to check out. So I challenge you, even though, again, this is kind of, we can't talk back and forth really right now, to think about what you already know about them. So just like I said in last week's lessons, your ancient civilizations and even most of your cities that are still to be founded, that are very important historical cities, are going to be founded and centered around a river or a body of water, because water, of course, is a life source, not just for humans, but plants and animals. It's a source for trade. And so, the Egyptians are no different. It's just with Mesopotamia, it was the Tigris and Euphrates River. With Egypt, it's the Nile River. Okay, so the Nile River has this wonderful, lush, fertile valley that runs alongside it. But then, of course, if you look back, right on the outside of that nice, fertile, lush valley is desert and sand. So when I say it was the lifeline, like it was legitimately the lifeline. And so, that is how you have all of your cities if you kind of look at the dots on that map right there next to the river. So your bell ringer for today, of course, is about monotheism and polytheism. Best way to remember those is mono means one. Like if you look at the root Latin word, mono means one. Poly means many. So even if you see other words that have that root in its beginnings, then you'll know that's one. Like one of the examples I'm giving is like monogamous versus polygamist. So monogamy, of course, is you're with one person. Being polygamist means you're with multiple people. So, of course, for all of you out there that have boyfriends and girlfriends, you want them to be monogamous. But Egyptians, in their faith, were polytheistic. Again, just like everybody else almost of this time frame. They believed in many gods, and it's the same foundational belief of the Mesopotamians, of what will become of the Greeks, the Romans. They all believe that there are multiple gods, but they turn the names and maybe some of the stories and representations, they make it their own. They blend it into their culture, but that base of believing that there are multiple gods and goddesses is the same. And so that's the reason why if you look back at most of your polytheistic faiths, you have a sun god, you have a harvest god, you have a, god of the dead or the underworld or the afterlife. And the stories may change up a little bit, but I mean, it's just them kind of embracing it and making it their own. And Egypt is no different. They obviously, the sun god was really important to them, because if you look at the geography and the setup of Egypt, it's lots of sun because it's desert and it's pretty arid, and so he was a big deal, and that was Ra. The Egyptian rulers, also known as the pharaohs, were actually considered like the sons of Ra, and so that was a big deal because the pharaoh himself was considered divine. He was the chosen one on earth. And the pyramids were built as their tombs. They were mummified. Yeah, it's another cool thing about Egyptians. They would embalm the bodies. They would take organs out and sit them in little like pottery jars. And then the tombs were amazingly filled with all of this incredible stuff, in addition to the mummified pharaoh himself or herself. You had jewelry and gold and chariots and even mummified horses, mummified cats and dogs, their pets. And why did they do all of this? Why did they put all of this stuff in with them into these tombs? Well, it's because they believed that all of the stuff that they had with them went with them to the afterlife. And they also believed that their body was reanimated once they got to the next world or the afterlife. And so that's why they took such great care of like their bodies after death, and making sure that everything was mummified and everything, could be reanimated well. They even had, they were polygamists, so they had multiple wives, but you often had like a head wife, like the main one. And if she was even in good health at the time of the pharaoh's death and didn't have like a baby, or was pregnant or something like that, she actually would ritually kill herself so that she went with him in the afterlife, or, into the next world. So really crazy, like death and preservation stuff going on with the Egyptians. So of course they had social structure. The pharaohs at the top. I know you can't see the pyramid because of my face, sorry, but they had, of course, a very distinct hierarchy and social structure, just like every other civilization and empire that we'll talk about throughout this entire year. The pharaoh's at the top because not only, again, is he the political leader, but he's considered your spiritual leader. He's considered a son of a god, the god of Ra, or Ra, the sun god. His vizier is underneath him. Again, I know you can't see it. That's like his second in command, and then you've got your nobles, your royal family, and then you have your nobles and your priests and priestesses. Underneath that are your scribes. These are the people that are writing the history down. And of course, their writing was hieroglyphics. So you have your scribes and your soldiers, because they protect your civilization that your scribes are, of course, writing the history of. Then you have your craftsmen, your tradesmen, your artisans, and then underneath that, your farmers and your slaves. And of course, the Hebrews were very famously enslaved by the Egyptians. And then if you are familiar with the Old Testament, and of course Exodus, Ramesses goes after Moses, and that's when Moses very famously parts the Red Sea, and then they get out from the slavery and underneath the control of Ramesses. So another thing, again, those of you that are online learners, I want you watching these videos. This is a really incredible video about a female pharaoh named Hatshepsut. So I want you to watch that. And I also want you to watch the video at the end of this lesson that's like Ancient Egypt 101. So again, I'm not putting these videos in here for you to ignore. We're watching them in class. I want you to watch them at home. So the Egyptian history timeline. One of the things I'm also going to create a video for you about is periodization and understanding just how to work a timeline. You know, when you're talking about BC, which is before Christ, or BCE is sometimes also what it's called, which is before Common Era, you're working towards the zero. And then once you get to the zero and you get into AD or Anno Domini, not after death, once you get into Anno Domini or the year of our Lord, or it's also come to be known as CE, Common Era, you're working away from the zero. And I'm going to do like a little video lesson just to kind of recap on that. And some of you, I think you have been taught that before, and some of you maybe not. So it's important to do that. So there are all these differing time frames within a 3,000 year history of a civilization, right? And so this just kind of breaks that down. That third intermediate period is the final kind of like let down period where you start to see them really decline. And the Romans are eventually going to take over the Egyptians. Cleopatra very much comes at the end of Egyptian greatness. I mean, she's there when they're on their way out as a civilization. They're going to get conquered. But, Egypt as a civilization didn't form until close to 2,000 years after the Sumerians. So again, the Mesopotamian civilizations predate even Egypt by a good bit. And then this is the video I was talking about that I want you to watch, this Ancient Egypt 101. And I will post instructions for the WebQuest and that periodization video as well. But that is it for today, and I hope y'all have a good one. Happy Monday. See you later. Bye-bye.